To discuss this and much more in contextualizing this concept of insider trading, I have joining me virtually Okechukwu Anuforo, a forensic auditor and the Chief Executive Officer of BVA Partners Limited. Thank you very much for joining us on the Breakfast Show this morning, Mr. Anuforo.
Thank you for having me, David. Glad to be here.
Now, let's start off with the concept of insider trading, the illegalities of this practice, and why do we have this as a recurrent phenomenon? Let's use the examples we've had which made the news. We have the likes of Flutterwave and also issues around corporate governance. It keeps on popping up in the news. Why do we have this trend? What is it exactly?
Yeah, it keeps coming up. Thank you again, Dave. It keeps happening because we are human beings, and because it's a recurring issue that won't go away. Just like many devices we see all over, the regulators have to then continue to pay attention. You see, insider trading in more than 90% of the cases always benefits a group of people or an individual against the others. So you typically find that people are using, like you said in your intro, people who have privileged information, who have non-confidential information, non-publicly available information, use it to their own advantage against the entire market. All right, and this endangers businesses, people's welfare. Obviously, so it's dangerous for the economy, dangerous for everybody, other than those who engage in this. And so it keeps recurring, and then we're glad that the regulators, not just in Nigeria, but across the world, continue to pay attention to it. And you find institutions dedicated specifically to dealing with issues around insider trading. Now, not all insider trading is bad. You have the legal and the illegal kind of insider trading. So, but perhaps as the conversation goes on, we can talk more about that. But yeah, don't expect it to go away. It continues to happen, and then we'll continue to see that. Incidentally, right now we're all talking about the institutions you mentioned, First Bank, Flutterwave, and stuff. So, yeah, that's more like a background.
And then giving us some other case studies which you have first-hand information on, how do you see this also shaping how we practice in terms of having transactions within the country? I believe over the phone we had discussions as to why we have such transactions and trading activities which are not necessarily clear. Let's have your take on within the stock exchange especially.
Okay, so I tell you something, David. When I say some aspect of insider trading is good, is legal, it means that, for instance, if say an entity that has privileged information, if a chief executive, a board member, whoever, you buy stocks from a company that you have significant control over, excuse me. Now, you and then report to the regulator as is required. You make that disclosure, then that is fine. You have, as an employee, you exercise your stock option, and this is reported to the regulator. That is also fine. These are two immediate examples I can give you about an insider trading that can be legal. But when you, for instance, like in the case of the Flutterwave, we've got to use them as a typical example going on right now. For instance, I understand that employees are compelled what word do I use now? But you now get employees to exercise their options at terms that are not in line with market valuation. In other words, you shortchange people, make them sell their exercise their options in a manner that doesn't really benefit them. That can be illegal. Okay, so and then the problem we're having with the First Bank too has to do with some of the insider deal that happened with key of the bad credit decision that we're taking. With some directors, as we learn, crazy decisions, basically. I mean, so we don't have to start mentioning names now, but you find that the laws have not been fully laid down, procedures haven't been followed, and you see this thing endangers particularly, the minority shareholders.
Mr. Anuforo, if I may button here now, these organizations we're using as our case study are organizations that have some level of structure. Transparency is key. Now, how intrinsic would you say is the practice of corporate governance? How much of an effort do you think we have to drive this agenda to ensure that there is clarity, there's clarity really, and we don't have individuals indulging in sharp practices, because irrespective of how much sensitization we've had in the past, there's still these exploitative tendencies that linger on. How intrinsic would you say corporate governance is in business Nigeria today?
Yeah, we can't rule out the Nigerian in us in everything that we do. So it's not even just in the business side of things that these things come up. All right. So the regulators continue to have a job to do. Nobody expects that it will get to a time when we no longer have to deal with these issues. What is important is to recognize that it's a problem, and we are constantly focusing on dealing with those kind of problems. I mean, we are human beings. Human beings naturally. I mean, you have to ask why is it not just a Nigerian thing? Now, at the moment as we speak, you have institutions that we're dealing with a situation right now where an institution, as part of breach in the corporate governance conversation, you go ahead and you sell investor shares. This is something that can destroy the entire market, that can destroy the confidence, because really, talking about restoring investors' confidence or building investors' confidence in the industry is everybody's responsibility. And so when you have players, when you have institutions that don't play by the rules, because really corporate governance, like we're saying, the insider trading, it just means that people, there are laid down rules and procedures about how institutions should be run, should be administered. And then you have those who seem to have significant control over and influence over things, trying to play their own game by their own rules. And so regulation is always very, very key. And that is where you then need the likes of SEC, CBN, standing firmly and saying, hey, this is what needs to be done, of course, in line with global best standards. I'm glad that we are, I don't know what the statistics say in terms of how we compare with the US SEC and other similar regulatory institutions around the world. But I think that our own SEC here are doing quite a good job, all right? But, so expecting any of these problems to go away will not just happen, because the moment we no longer have corporate governance issues on insider trading and all of those unethical behavior kind of thing, then there won't be the relevance of the SEC and co will no longer be really sure.
We'll definitely have a bigger conversation sometime next time. Thank you so much for your time on The Breakfast Show this morning. We've been speaking with Mr. Okechukwu Anuforo, a forensic auditor and the Chief Executive Officer of BVA Partners Limited. Thank you once again.
Thank you, David. Glad to.